Here we go, ladies. Tradition 12, wrapping it up. We're going to, as usual, read from the big book, 4th edition, page 562, short form, then 565 and 6, long form, and then we will read from the illustrated pamphlet, the 12 Traditions Illustrated. We will do a group read of the 12 and 12, so please put your hands up. And then, of course, our discussion questions from the Traditions checklist from the AA Grapevine, which can be found online. So starting off with Tradition 12, anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities. Long form. 12. And finally, we of Alcoholics Anonymous believe that the principle of anonymity has an immense spiritual significance. It reminds us that we are to place principles before personalities and that we are actually to practice a genuine humility. This to the end that our great blessings may never spoil us, that we shall forever live in thankful contemplation of Him who presides over us all. And from our illustrated pamphlet. Anonymity, as we observe it in AA, is at root a simple expression of humility. When we use the 12 steps to recover from alcoholism, we are each trying to achieve real humility, to put our self-respect on a solid base of truth rather than on fantasies about ourselves. When we use the 12 traditions to work together in AA, we are all trying to achieve humility. As individual members, by recognizing our true place in AA as a fellowship, by recognizing AA's true place in the world. Tradition 1 reminds each of us that we are not recovering on our own, that we should control our personal desires and ambitions in order to guard the unity of our group and our fellowship. We ought not, Tradition 2, fancy ourselves as big shots in AA, no matter what office we hold. All of us are just alcoholics together, and in our groups we are not entitled, Tradition 3, to rule on the qualifications of other alcoholics seeking the same help that we've had. Yes, a group needs humility too. It may make its name public, but in the spirit of anonymity, it should see the whatever group as merely part of a bigger whole, Tradition 4. Careful in every enterprise to consider the welfare of all the other groups that make up AA, both in group and individual activities, we should remember what the full name of our fellowship is. It does not represent any established religion, nor is it a new religion. We are not evangelists or gurus out to save humanity. We are anonymous alcoholics trying to help other alcoholics, Tradition 5. In the rising battle against alcoholism, we ought not let our pride in AA mislead us into linking our fellowship with other agencies in order to bid for a share in their power, prestige, and funds. If we keep Traditions 6 and 7 in mind, we will instead direct all our effort toward AA's own unique purpose. When we go on 12th step calls, we should not tell ourselves how noble we are for doing such valuable work without pay. The meaning of 12th step work cannot be measured in money, Tradition 8, and we have received advance pay for it, in coin of far greater worth, our very lives. In the same tradition, it's suggested that a service center maintains AA humility by paying its employees decent wages, rather than considering AA so virtuous an outfit that employment there is a favor. When we are given special responsibilities within AA, Tradition 9 defines these as opportunities to serve, not titles to flaunt. The humility of the fellowship itself is safeguarded by Tradition 10. With the refusal to set ourselves up as general authorities, swinging our collective weight around in the public arena. We do not want to sell our program as a surefire remedy to the extravagant terms of a promotional campaign, Tradition 11, or dramatize it by identifying noted people in AA, thereby implying that recovery has been for each of us an individual accomplishment. As Tradition 12 reminds us, we have something stronger than our human personalities to rely on. Our principles come first, and they are not our own invention. They reflect eternal spiritual values. With this tradition, both as individuals and as a fellowship, we humbly acknowledge our dependence on a power higher than ourselves. And we'll go on over to the 12 by 12, where Tradition 12 is found at the back of the book on page 184. And starting us off, Pam G. You should be able to unmute.
I'm Pam, I'm an alcoholic. And Tradition 12, anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities. The spiritual substance of anonymity is sacrifice. Because AA's 12 traditions repeatedly ask us to give up personal desires for the common good, we realize that the sacrificial spirit, well symbolized by anonymity, is the foundation of them all. It is AA's proved willingness to make these sacrifices that gives people their high confidence in our future. But in the beginning, anonymity was not born of confidence. It was a child of our early fears. Our first nameless groups of alcoholics were secret societies. New prospects could find us only through a few trusted friends. The bare hint of publicity, even for our work, shocked us. Though ex-drinkers, we still thought we had to hide from public distrust and contempt. When the Big Book appeared in 1939, we called it Alcoholics Anonymous. Its foreword made this revealing statement. It is important that we remain anonymous because we are too few at present to handle the overwhelming number of personal appeals which may result from this publication. Being mostly business or professional folk, we could not well carry on our occupations in such an event. Between these lines, it is easy to read our fear that large numbers of incoming people might break our anonymity wide open. Thank you.
Thank you. Deborah, you're unmuted.
I'm unmuted. Hi, I'm Deborah. I'm an alcoholic. As the AA groups multiplied, so did anonymity problems. Enthusiastic over the spectacular recovery of a brother alcoholic, we'd sometimes discuss those intimate and harrowing aspects of his case meant for his sponsor's ear alone. The aggrieved victim would then rightly declare that his trust had been broken. When such stories got into circulation outside of AA, the loss of confidence in our anonymity promise was severe. It frequently turned people from us. Clearly, every AA member's name and story, too, had to be confidential if he wished. This was our first lesson in the practical application of anonymity. With characteristic intemperance, however, some of our newcomers cared not at all for secrecy. They wanted to shout AA from the housetops, and did. Alcoholics barely dry rushed and about bright-eyed, buttonholing anyone who would listen to their stories. Others hurried to place themselves before microphones and cameras. Sometimes they got distressingly drunk and let their groups down with a bang. They had changed from AA members to AA show-offs. This phenomenon of contrast really set us thinking. Squarely before us was the question, how anonymous should an AA member be? Our growth made it plain that we couldn't be a secret society, but it was equally plain that we couldn't be a vaudeville circuit either. The charting of a safe path between these extremes took a long time. As a rule, the average newcomer wanted his family to know immediately what he was trying to do. He also wanted to tell others who had tried to help him, his doctor, his minister, and close friends. As he gained confidence, he felt it right to explain his new way of life to his employer and business associates. When opportunities to be helpful came along, he found he could talk easily about AA to almost anyone. These quiet disclosures helped him to lose his fear of the alcoholic stigma and spread the news of AA existence into his community. Many a new man and women came to AA because of such conversations. Though not in the strict letter of anonymity, such communications were well within its spirit.
Thank you. Marianne?
Marianne, alcoholic. But it became apparent that that word of mouth method was too limited. Our work as such needed to be publicized. The AA groups would have to reach quickly as many despairing alcoholics as they could. Consequently, many groups began to hold meetings which were open to interested friends and the public, so that the average citizen could see for himself just what AA was all about. The response to these meetings was warmly sympathetic. Soon groups began to receive requests for AA speakers to appear before civic organizations, church groups, and medical societies. Provided anonymity was maintained on these platforms, the reporters present were cautioned against the use of names or pictures. The result was fine. Then came our first excursion into major publicity, which were breathtaking. Cleveland's Plain Dealer articles about us ran the town's membership from a few into hundreds overnight. The news stories of Mr. Rockefeller's dinner for Alcoholics Anonymous helped double our total membership in a year's time. Jack Alexander, famous Saturday Evening Post piece, made AA a national institution. Such tributes of these brought opportunities for still more recognition. Our newspapers and magazines wanted AA stories. Film companies wanted to photograph us. Radio and finally television besieged us with requests for appearances. What should we do? Pass.
Della?
As this tide offering public approval swept in, we realized that it could do us incalculable good or great harm. Everything would depend upon how it was channeled. We simply couldn't afford to take the chance of letting self-appointed members present themselves as messiahs representing AA before the whole public. The promoter instinct in us might be our underdoing. If even one publicly got drunk or was lured into using AA's name for his own purpose, the damage might be irreparable. At this altitude, press, radio, films, and television, anonymity, 100% anonymity, was the only possible answer. Here, principles would have to come before personalities, without exception. These experiences taught us that anonymity is the real humility at work. It is an all-pervading spiritual quality which today keynotes AA life everywhere. Moved by the spiritual of anonymity, we try to give up our natural desires for personal distinction as AA members, both among fellow alcoholics and before the general public. As we lay aside these very human aspirations, we believe that each of us takes a part in the weaving of a protective mantle which covers our whole society and under which we grow and work in unity. We are sure that humility expressed by anonymity is the greatest safeguard that Alcoholics Anonymous can ever have.
Thank you so much, Della. All right, so going to our questions. Tradition 12, anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities. 1. Why is it a good idea for me to place the common welfare of all AA members before individual welfare? What would happen to me if AA as a whole disappeared? 2. When I do not trust AA's current servants, who do I wish had the authority to straighten them out? 3. In my opinions of and remarks about other AAs, am I implying membership requirements other than a desire to stay sober? 4. Do I ever try to get a certain AA group to conform to my standards, not its own? 5. Have I a personal responsibility in helping an AA group fulfill its primary purpose? What is my part? 6. Does my personal behavior reflect the sixth tradition or belie it? 7. Do I do all I can do to support AA financially? When was the last time I anonymously gave away a grapevine subscription? 8. Do I complain about certain AA's behavior, especially if they are paid to work for AA? Who made me so smart? 9. Do I fulfill all AA responsibilities in such a way as to please privately even my own conscience? Really? 10. Do my utterances always reflect the 10th tradition, or do I give AA critics real ammunition? 11. Should I keep my AA membership a secret or reveal it in private conversation when that may help another alcoholic and therefore me? Is my brand of AA so attractive that other drunks would want it? 12. What is the real importance of me among more than 1 million AAs? I love that last question. But to start off this conversation, I just wanted to talk a little bit about my personal feelings about principles before personalities. I've heard many a meeting where that is the topic of the meeting, and the conversation goes a little bit like this. Principles before personalities. That means that I don't have to like you, but I get to help you. And that is what I hear all the time when it comes to Tradition 12. And what an awful thing for a newcomer to hear if they're coming into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. Basically, we're saying, I don't like you. I really don't want anything to do with you, but I'm here to help. And it's not very attractive. So I just wanted to bring that to attention because when Tradition 12 comes up, that always just, I just don't like that that's the message that's being sent. When really principles before personalities means it doesn't matter who you are or where you come from, I'm here to help. We're all equal here. You know, I don't care if you're a doctor or a lawyer or an actor or someone that's homeless with no shoes and street feet. I'm here to help. For me, my anonymity is blown. Everyone knows me. I have quite the personality, but there's a lot of things that I keep very private in my AA. You know, I've had people share, oh, Kim's my sponsor, as if that's some glaring thing. I'm just a girl with a blue book, just like everybody else. I have made it my purpose in life to share this message in a larger way than some people do, but that doesn't make me any better or worse than anyone else. That's just the path I've chosen for myself. And so I try to keep as low profile as I can, but unfortunately it gets broken all of the time. And I have one instance that really bothered me, where there's another girl named Kim that lives in my community, and we both wear glasses, we both have dark hair, and we have similar builds, but they started calling her the other Kim. And to me, that's awful. Awful. And I'm sure she has a resentment against me as a result. I haven't seen her in a long time, and she was in early recovery. We're just Kim. we're just Kims. And blue shirt or green shirt. You don't have to say the other Kim. And that's just one that sticks with me. And tradition 12 is we are all just equal. That's it. It doesn't matter if you're somebody special at GSO or just someone new coming in. We're all equal here, and that's the most important thing. And I've seen it so many times where, even myself, I get put on a pedestal, and I'm not. I'm just being of service to my fellow alcoholics, and, there's no way for me to change it. It's just the nature of the beast, unfortunately. But I always like to refer to that when I speak of Tradition 12. But yeah, principles before personalities. Please, please don't say, I don't have to like you. I just want to help you. We're all equal here, and we're here to help is a much softer and nicer and more appealing and attractive way to say that. But yes, the questions they cover, if you see them, they line up number for number to the other traditions, because this tradition really engulfs everything, and it's that whole purpose of unity, and that we're all here to help one another get sober, and no one's better than anyone else. Anyone want to raise their hands? Marianne, New Jersey.
Hi, Kim. Hi, I'm Marianne, alcoholic. That first one question got to me. It said, why is it a good idea to place common welfare before individual welfare? What would happen to me if AA as a whole disappeared? I had an experience recently of speaking with someone who just dropped out of AA, didn't drink again, but AA kind of just disappeared out of life, and I can see what would happen to me, because my focus would be me as opposed to the common welfare, and my world would be much smaller than it is today. I think when you were talking about those. I'm here to help, but I don't have to like you, and that kind of thing. I mean, that's not kind. There's no excuse for not being kind, even if you're never going to be best friends. We're not asked to make a judgment about new people that way. We're just asked to accept whoever comes in and give them a chance to get what we have. And I think the kindness is the common thing. I mean, I've been kind of treated, offhandedly by old timers when I first came around, and I remember it, and it wasn't nice. I didn't like it. I'd ask for a phone number, and that took a lot of courage, and they'd say, oh, never mind, go find the list. And there'd be no attempt to, say hello or say welcome to the group or something, It can be an uncomfortable place, certainly, for trying to get started in AA, at least from my experience. And I've tried sometimes to impact groups, where they were driven by one of the groups I loved for like years and years and years, suddenly started being filled with a bunch of guys who all knew each other and cross-talked, and they'd talk and they'd be really attentive if one of the group talk, but once one of the women in the group started to talk, they'd all have side conversations. It was like, that didn't count. And I objected to it, and I tried to do it through group conscience and through, talking privately to some of the guys, and nothing helped. So I just said, well, that's that group. I can't help it. I loved it for years, but I can't help it anymore. I just can't sit through that. So anyway, I found another meeting instead. But I think, we have to be sensitive to each other in the sense of respecting each other's efforts to be in the group and to be as kind as we're capable of. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you so much, Marianne. Lucille, I got you. You're unmuted.
Hi, I'm Lucille, and I'm an alcoholic. What I found in the rooms here in Grand Prairie, Alberta, is often I've heard a lot of people say to the newcomer, will love you until you can love yourself. So that's very welcoming to the newcomer. The other thing I wanted to share was if I go out and broadcast that I'm in AA, and I'm thinking about my family, for instance, and then I end up slipping or having a relapse, then they'll say, "Oh, AA doesn't work. Look what happened." I have a very large extended family, about 100 people, and some of them qualify for this program, but I don't tell them anything. My brothers and sisters know that I am in AA. I don't know if they've told their children, but none of them have reached out to me for help, but I want to be sure that I maintain my sobriety so that if they do need help, they know who they can contact to find out a little bit more about AA if they're interested. So yeah, keeping the principles before personalities is very important, and that's why Tradition 12 is very important. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you so much. And yeah, my immediate family circle knows that I'm in AA, but if you go to my extended family, they just know that I'm sober. They don't know how. Thank you. Anybody else? Joanne.
Hi, everyone. I'm Joanne, and I'm an alcoholic addict. Am I unmuted? Okay.
Yeah, that was the smoothest journey we've ever had with the mute button.
I've been asking for help not to touch my keyboard. It's been working. So I'll share the lesson that I learned, and then I'll share the long-term application of this. So I've always said, being a young person, coming into the program in AA, try not to date in your home group, because then you have to figure out who gets the group if you break up. And I was in a relationship with someone in my group, and it went longer than it really should have. And we finally broke. And you want best for the other person, but you really don't want to see them dating anybody else. And he started dating someone not in the program. But when he got married, very shortly after we broke up, when he got married, he invited a lot of the people from our group, except for me, of course, makes sense. But there was a little bit of hurt and a little bit of resentment of, that post, relationship stuff. And make a long story short, the woman that he actually fell in love with and got married had some medical problems and was told not to get pregnant, but she ended up getting pregnant. And she was expecting twins. And one night he came down the stairs, and it turns out that she died along with the babies. And I stood there, and there was no feeling of ex-boyfriend issues, all of that stuff. I just wanted to reach out and say, are you sober? What can we do to help you? And that's where, you just get out of yourself and you look at somebody else that's hurting and you just say, how can you help? Years later, recently, within the year, I was at a meeting where my sponsee's husband, who I don't have a really good opinion of, and his child walked into the meeting. And he was there because he needed help. And I sat there and I said, do I extend my hand? Do I not extend my hand? Oh, I don't want to extend my hand. Oh my God. And then I said, God, give me the willingness to just see another suffering alcoholic addict. And I went over and I just said, welcome. Because he needed to be welcomed, and his daughter needed to know that her parents could go someplace and be welcomed, because she was in hell and everything. So it's not about It's not about what we think. And by the way, pedestals, falling off pedestals really hurt. So be careful, even if you're working hard, if you hear the rumor mill starting to put you on a pedestal, you gotta crush it, because I've seen some bad pedestal falls over the years. And one of my little pet peeves, along with, you don't have to like you, but is people that are like, I'm not your marriage counselor, I'm not your lawyer. It's like putting up like this negative barrier, like, well, who the hell are you? And I think that we have been beaten up so much by the time we come into the program. What we need is gentleness and gentle boundaries and all that. But that comes as you don't have to like just pronounce, I'm not going to be this for you. Like, maybe you need an Al-Anon meeting, and that, and just be nice to the newcomer, set some limits, but man, we all came in so beaten up, and what actually feels really uncomfortable is when people try to be nice to us, and then people get scared, because if you're nice, at some point you'll find out who I really am and you'll leave, and so we have to keep loving harder, even when sometimes they call us at 2:00 in the morning. That's okay. That's why we stay sober. So I'll share the time.
Thank you, Joanne. I have a sponsee who was looking for a sponsor, and her boyfriend was saying, go get a sponsor, you need help. And then she picked me, and he goes, anybody but her. They're not together anymore, and she's still sober. Margaret.
Good morning. Thank you. My name is Margaret, and I'm an alcoholic. Thank you, Joanne. Your story, it was amusing. The end of it wasn't amusing, but it just reminds me that when we have long history in Alcoholics Anonymous, we have so many stories to share and so much experience, strength, and hope. And that's why we're here. Our primary purpose is to carry the message. And that's, I think, what is in Tradition 12. And it is hard falling from pedestals. For a while, everybody in Vancouver had kind of gotten to know me because I was so young when I came in. And I did a lot of speaking and was around a lot of meetings. But I found that it got so that everybody knew my name, but I didn't necessarily know everybody else's name. And so I really had to take a step back. And, there are stories. There was a person that was very, very integral in our IKIPA, International Young People Conference of AA, because I was there for the International Conference of Young People in Vancouver. But this one fellow who was, everybody had him up on a pedestal. Anyway, he did end up going back drinking, and he never got sober again. And he had a few years of sobriety. It's so sad. But what I've had to really stay in touch with, and I think I share this all the time, is that, it's all written here in the big book and in our 12 by 12. And I find that in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I know anybody would relate to this, we kind of tend to be sheeple a little bit. And there's trends in Alcoholics Anonymous. You'll see a meeting where all of a sudden everybody goes to that meeting. It becomes a huge meeting, over 100 people. And, and it's, for me, I have to really stay in touch with where my ego's at. And I absolutely have to stay humble and keep the humility. And there's been, definitely times in my sobriety where I've been brought back and reminded of that. And it's always a good reminder. I am only here one day at a time. And Alcoholics Anonymous, that goes back to the, non-use of last names and everything. Something I was thinking about after I got off the meeting yesterday or Wednesday was, one of our meetings, small little meetings in Fort St. John. There used to be maybe 12 or 15 people there on a Saturday night. Well, the fellow that ran it, and he, it was against the traditions, but he opened the meeting every Saturday night. Well, it just so happened that he was actually a criminal lawyer in Fort St. John. And so, sometimes it was interesting to see these people arrive at the meeting and they have seen this man on the other side of their desk. But so, and it's good that, his name wasn't out there. His last name wasn't out there, because it can be a deterrent. So what I know in my sobriety is that I really want to represent a good face of Alcoholics Anonymous, because I might be the only face of the big book that a person might see. So for me, it's about being humble, trying to be, just trying to be humble and one day at a time. And I mean, I had the big 10-year ego and running around and doing all the speaking and, wanting to be the circuit speaker and thinking I was going to have my own jet to fly me from conference to conference. Did all that. But you know what? That's not doing anybody any favors. And what the other thing that I wanted to mention here is it is spiritual foundation. And it seems that our higher power has a way of realigning these groups or realigning these personalities. And, my little irk at the moment is I get the principles before personalities or whatever, or what people are saying when they're saying, I don't have to like you, but I love you. So we tend to shorten things up. So what I was going to say, my little irk at the moment is people going, Margaret, alcoholic. And I just don't feel like that's enough of an identifier. My name is Margaret, and I am an alcoholic. And that's my personal little thing, But like I say, these things in Alcoholics Anonymous seem to go in trance, and they wave around and they fall away. And what I believe at the end of the day is that our higher power will lead us through. And sometimes I have to sit back in patience and just allow things to work out. And what I would ask you, Kim, is who's your sponsor? That's who I would want to be my sponsor. Do you know what I mean? I don't mean that, like, I'm just thinking about a person back in the day who was a delegate, but who is her sponsor? And that person was actually a very, very humble lady that you didn't hear her name all over Vancouver. And so it was really, really neat. Anyway, we all have our special gifts and we all have our special place. And I love the people that do the service like you're doing, Kim. We absolutely need those personalities. Absolutely. We need those people. Where places I get concerned, I have seen, television shows or, people wanting to start radio shows or whatever. But again, our higher power is taking care of us. And that's what I believe. So thank you so much for my sobriety. Thank you for leading this group. I can hardly wait till Monday. I keep giving out the message to other ladies, and I just hope that they'll join us because I've really gotten a lot out of these meetings. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I gotta raise my expectations. I'm here like I'm imagining this VW van with like cushions in the back and traveling all around to meetings. I gotta get me a private jet dream. I like my little VW van, beaching it. Oh yeah. Except not camping. I don't do camping. Lee.
Hi, I'm Lee and I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Lee.
I like introducing myself that way. It took me a long time to get to the place that said I was an alcoholic, so now I can say it from this rooftop. Anyway, I'm in a meeting. I find it wonderful after a while because my mind starts putting all your thoughts together into something that makes sense to me. And so I really appreciate everybody's comments, but I think the ego thing has been a really big problem for me for the last little while, actually probably when I started joining the 164 group. And my response, well, first of all, I'll tell you a little bit of what the problem was for me. I expected to be asked to share. And that was a mistake because it was like sometimes 300 people in the room, and I'd love to know how I figured out that they should be calling on me. And that was because in my head, I had sobriety and I had seniority, and that was the ego shit going on. And it's taken me a long time of coming to these meetings to figure it out. But how I worked around this thing was I bought myself a book to write in because I wasn't being asked to share, but I had things going on in my head that I actually did want to share with another person or the group or whatever. And so I started, when I finally figured this out, I started to write about what it was that I was getting out of the meeting at that time, but I was too, whatever one would call that, to put up my hand because I was supposed to be asked. And that has taken me a while to get over with as some of you would know by my recent shares. But here's the paradox here, a lovely paradox for me, is that this is the steps and traditions are over on this particular run. And I understand we're going to, some of us are going to be starting back on step 1 on Monday. But here's the interesting part. I didn't buy this. I didn't write this for anything. It's all full of all my wonderful thoughts. But here's today. It's finished. And it ended with this thing about ego. You know, I just all came together at a thunderous thing where I can read what I thought here. I can keep learning what I'm learning, and I'm learning a lot. But really, in the way in the beginning, chipped away, not in a bad way, in a really great way. So thanks a lot, everybody, for everything that you've shared, because it just keeps coming in, and I love it. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Lee. And for those, Lee has the most amazing community garden at her place. I was so fortunate to get to see it when I popped by. It was awesome. You guys are making me try to remember. There's this guy, and he introduces himself, and he says, "Hi, my name is Alcohol, and my problem is like Mark," or something weird like that. And I'm like, huh? I don't understand. When they change it up. But yeah, so for those, there are some, and I don't know if Della knows what I'm talking about. In the big meeting, there's some people that they put up their hand because they think that what they have, like we all think what we have to say is more important than anyone's. And when they don't get picked, they start writing it in the chat because they just have to get it out. It's funny. Oh, I love it. Anyone else on Tradition 12? All right, what I'll do then is I'm going to just read the little blurb that closes out the illustrated guide. We'll end our recording, we'll do our Serenity Prayer, and then we can just chit-chat. So it says this: "This we owe to AA's future, to place our common welfare first, to keep our fellowship united, for on AA unity depend our lives and the lives of those to come." And now let's close with the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. Thank you so much, ladies, for another